You can see very low idle. And other than the tune-up, a lot of this stuff is original, which I don't think would be 100 and something thousand miles. And everything pretty much works, although it's not a lot of stuff. So, I mean, I suppose if you wanted the voltage regulator and the battery, something else can be worked out for that as well. But, you know, of course, and the generator and starter, I gather that's all going with the setup. So, we're going to put a more modern engine in here. It took me longer than it should have, but I'm kind of close to the hood. I should have more room because that rod can move, but it can't really fix anywhere. I have to put a piece of wood, so I might have to take the camera off and reposition this. Oop. Oh, okay. Well, if I rotate it and come forward, that'll work. Anyway, getting there. All right, I got a piece of wood holding it there. It's pretty sturdy. I was putting this in the middle there, and I was like, I don't think so. But I got a lot to go, but I got a lot on this side of the engine. I wish I moved the chain a couple of links the other way because it's really off balance here. Hope it works. That's really close, and I'm just about there. Obviously, if I pull out, I'll give myself more room. Every inch forward, sometimes you can go a half inch up, or at least the same amount up. I think I'll make it. Now I'm getting close to the mechanism for the hood latch. And although I can scoot it over, or I can end up making it go over that much, but I'm real close here. I really should just be pushing the car back, but it doesn't like to really move like other cars, so I'm going to keep playing with it, but I'm going to use my two hands. Still got a little bit, but I think now if I go past a couple inches, I'll be able to clear the hood completely. So I think I can push the car now. Man, she don't really want to move. Oh yeah, right there, I'm cleared. See, car's rolling back though. It looks like I'm clear. Just barely. Like I said, I go up a little, I go back a little. Just at the lip there. I like to push it a little bit more. And it's just getting caught on the fucking flywheel. Oh, there we go. It's just right there. But now I'm way cleared. The geometry changes. It's amazing how you can get it out, even though it's so deep in there. It just didn't look like anything was happening. Oh shit, I got this guy. That's the thing that holds the air cleaner. It's just making it. So now I can push it, hopefully, and it pushes. I got the drive shaft a little dragging. There we go. Woof. Wow. So this is where the cross member is, and this is where the front engine cross member is, which is kind of completely different than what I was expecting, although I'm like, duh, pretty much that's the way a lot of shit is. So, look how filthy this motor's pretty dirty. Definitely some leakage here, coming from the oil pump in particular. It used to be red, the motor. And this is the transmission. I had a hard time getting it out because it was hung up on the bearing, and I had to pull real hard, and I actually saw a spark when it came out because these two little things are hooked on that. I wasn't quite understanding why, because it was supposed to just slide off the shaft, but it kind of, it cocks and makes it hard. So rather than it sliding out, which still don't know why it didn't. I was trying to take off other things here. This guy here, I unbolted that, but you see, it kind of acts like a Z-bar, and it applies. It's so weird, Weird, I guess. Oh, look at that. Now it came out because those springs were hooked up into those holes right there, those little holes. But I'm like, if the throw bearing came out with it, it wouldn't have been an issue, Look at that. That was almost going to bang on this side, but that's a plug of some sort. So I have to go back in that hole. I'll find the bolt and I'll put it back, I guess. It was in relatively good shape, but it was hanging up. I couldn't get it out. So basically those springs just yanked themselves, they popped out. And it is what it is. I mean, I could see the clutch material. It looks brand new, unless somebody changed it, because it almost looks ridiculously new. Which I don't understand why somebody would change it, other than maybe I think it just is newish, because I'm pretty sure this engine has 23,000 miles on it. But 70 something years, I had to cut the pipe. Couldn't get these off. Couldn't get an angle. The oil pump's in the way here, and this is totally blocking. I'm not sure if somebody did this fucking cheesy ass weld here. I think somebody made this exhaust, the front part, and then the back part needed to be done by the current owner. Wow. Yeah, so the hell did they do? They bolted on this guy and then welded something there, because they couldn't get this angle, I guess. It is a stupid angle. But I gotta find a way to put this down somewhere. And I guess I got a really shitty dolly, but maybe it's time to buy another dolly, because I got three dollies being used with shit right now. But pretty cool. So there's the hole. And I gotta figure out how this I see a nut and a bolt there, right? Come on, focus. Right up here. So I don't know if I unbolt that, if it'll actually slide out. I got to take off the two shift levers and the rod going up to the steering column. That's probably going to be eliminated, because you really can't do electric steering if the rod is in the way, unless you try to make it go around. But even then, I'm putting in a modern GM automatic transmission. There's going to be a floor shifter. It doesn't make any sense to have it there. This car has a light switch that has the directionals built in, but I'm not 100% sure, because it never worked. So I never examined it. So the worst case scenario is we might have to put a one on the column here, which is probably more comfortable than leaning over and using that for directional. So that might get the original plan there might get nixed. And then this thing had a clutch that turned on the starter. When you hit the clutch, it's funny, while it was running, it wouldn't engage the starter, but for some reason it knew when it was running. I don't know if that's crazy technology for 1951, but it made for stalling and restarting very easy. That being said, we got to get another switch for the dashboard that actually has a key on. I might get some kind of solenoid that can turn on more things, because this is not meant for much more than 30-40 amps. At least that's my feeling. Even the original, even though it's 6 volts, the original what do you call it, generator, it probably didn't have much more than 30 amps, 35, 10E. I don't know where else I would want the amperage. But most of these cars, like the whole car's run off of one 10-gauge wire usually. You know, maybe something a little stronger in places, you know, depending. So I'll have to figure out something there in the future. If you know, the brakes work really good, but in the future you can actually put a brake booster right there in a conventional place. That kind of would be kind of cool. But you have the, you know, the speedometer cable coming here, which I don't know if we can even use it. And then this is the brake cable, which goes to a mechanism that goes 90 degrees. And what's great about the emergency brake cable is actually goes to the brake pin 51. It doesn't go to the back of the transmission with a big drum. So that's good, because that, you know, presents itself with challenges. This is a weird steering system, to say the least. And for all's being said, like, look how weird the pitman arm is. It's instead of being parallel to the ground, it's perpendicular to the ground. Very weird. You got these big donut mounts, which are similar to Chevy, and that's why I guess a lot of people put Chevy V8s in here. But I don't know where the Chevy V8 goes. It doesn't even look like it's going to line up with the cross member right there. So it definitely is going to be a challenge. But this is a small engine, so I figure I have room to go more forward. You know, it all depends how I feel, you know, the weight distribution is and everything, and how far I really want it to go back, because all I got to do is add metal. Although, you know, for an automatic, it may be blocking the transmission, so I don't know if I can hack that and re-weld it. That's a little much to do, and to be safe. But you know, there's other ways. I shall see. But these are very interesting. But you know, I bought the original mounts for Chevy, and I think I had it already for Dodge, because these are Jeep. So I'm not sure yet, but I mean, very simply, these bolts here could be used, you know, possibly even with the because I bought a set of those donut mounts. Yeah, there's a hole right there. Of course, you don't want to use one hole; you want to use at least two holes, so you have to go up, just like those dog bone mounts used to be. You know, dog bone, U-mount, whatever. The 50s cars used to have that, the U thing, but I have to look at some pictures of them. I just can't remember, but there's a lot of things you can do, you know, depending how low this is going to sit, because I don't know how much lower I can go. It seems so high up, so I got to do some measurements of where the center line is. You know, the center line seems to be very high up on this car as far as where it is, but it might be right where it needs to be. But if I could put it lower, that would be interesting, but I don't know if it'd be, you know, possible, you know, because of the cross member. But obviously, when you do the cross member, you don't want the transmission pan to be underneath it. If it's a standard transmission, there's not really much there, so it's not a problem. But because we're going automatic, you got some issues here. But like I said, if the front of that end, I mean, it might be closer than I think, you know. So in fact, I should measure, even if it's on an angle, where the transmission cross member is to these guys, you know, and then take it from there. But all things I'm going to think of. I'm going to take a look at some things. Like I said, I have those mounts, but they're for small block Chevy. Really didn't want to put a small block Chevy because I've seen some in these cars and they just look really shoehorned. There's not a lot of room. And I guess people do it. I don't know what they hack up, but I saw so many things are very hard. And it's very good to have overdrive with these cars. I just think it's so useless to put a Chevy 350, Turbo 350 in a car when you could put a 700 or a 200 4R, you know, and have some actual gears. But it's a huge tunnel. That's what I said. This thing looked like it was so high up, but I don't know, you know. The whole car is up high, I guess, but it's pretty awesome. And then the fuel line, it's funny. The fuel line goes from the passenger side, because I was always wondering about it. And it was, I don't know if this is redone. It looks copper-ish, because I adapted a piece I saw in the back when I did the gas tank. Gas tank's in the trunk. It's a fuel cell. The steering box appears to be leaking, so that's another problem. Boy, and so I guess I'll be taking out the whole thing anyway, you know. But I gotta see if I can find that pitman arm seal. That's I didn't realize how fucking bad that is. Wow, interesting. Well, I think this concludes, but I'm gonna get a tape measure and play around with measurements and see what I got here. Sometimes looks are deceiving, and it's like, oh, everything's fine, everything works out just great. So right here, on an angle here, going to that hole, and obviously I just drill a hole in the center. If it was just one of the other ones, you know, like the typical GM ones, looks like 29 inches from that one. This one looks like it's smaller, 29. So, for shits and giggles, this is the tranny that's going in. It's like that little guy right here. It's like the whole thing is maybe 18 inches. That's like it's 17. It looks like it's hilarious. But if you go to where the typical GM mounts are, which I believe that tape measure is somewhere there. So I got 21 inches here. So you know there's going to be a problem now. Now the good thing is if I can pass that cross member completely and the pan be on the other side, I just don't. I have to make something going across, obviously. But here's the edge of this motor, and just say for shits and giggles, because this is a nice small motor. I mean, you got 13 in the middle of this mount. So like if I can make something where I had made something here where they used the donut, and I'd have to measure across the donuts, but this is only 12 inches, right? 13 inches. And what I say, this was 21. 13 and 21 is 34. So if I actually did it the same place, 34 would end up like somewhere like that. So that would definitely not cover the pan. You know, the pan would definitely cover it up. However, that engine is only 13 inches, which is this is a reason why I wanted to use that engine, is because I knew it was going to be tighter. Because like after, you know, with the radiator here, I was like 28 inches. I was going to give her a straight six Chevy. I have one here, and I was like, I don't believe it. So yeah, it's like with the thing, it's like 28, 29, the whole thing. And the Chevy straight six was like 32 inches on its own without the accessories. I was like, holy crap, this thing is long. And this car is tiny. It looks like it's big. It looks deep and everything. But that's why like a V configuration would definitely be better. The Studebaker engine is not small, but it's also definitely smaller than a Chevy. But it has a wider V. But so if they, you know, like if there was a way to put it would have to be 20. See, and of course on an angle it's a little different. So 21 ends up being right there, and then it looks like 27 straight up. So 13 inches from 21 is 34. So if the front of the motor was here, yeah, and then there's another inch and it's hitting the radiator. But sometimes that could work, you know. But no, 13. That's where the mount is. So yeah, the whole front thing is going to be definitely out of whack here. But ultimately, if I did 34 from here, yeah, that's interesting. I wonder how bad I can hack this out and make it come back, or if I leave it and just add to it. I was thinking about just adding a metal plate to it, but like, man, I'd have to get a drain plug, I guess, for the tranny. You know, it's one of those things you have to do. But I remember seeing like underside pictures of the Chevy V8 with the Turbo 350, and I really wonder what they did. I got to look at the cross members that they use. Maybe somebody sells a cross member that goes back, because it actually holds up the whole car. You know, it goes It goes all the way to the edge here. So it's like part of the frame, but it crosses the frame. It's very odd, you know. So there's a hole here, though. Where is it? right there. I don't know if it's just full of dirt. I was wondering if you could put that back, but everything would just move. But I kind of don't know. You know, I don't know if it's something that like with the because they had overdrive. I think they just bolted it to the back of the other one, but that's a lot of weight on the back. So I don't know if there's something else that can go back there or what. So we shall see. I got to look to see what other people do with the Chevy V8 conversion, because if I could put this in, then any motor can go in. You know, well, not any motor, but Chevy motor. You know, if it ever wanted to get more power. But these things freaking run great. I got a great, deal on this engine, and it's a Jasper rebuild, so I think it's pretty damn good for what I paid for it. I think $800 with all the shit on it is very good. It has a power steering pump, which we don't really need, unless I find that I can find something that works with this. But from what I did some other research, there is really nothing else with power steering that'll bolt into this, supposedly. But it looks like a Ford, looks very close to a Ford that had that setup or something like that. I can't remember. But, obviously if the bolts are not the same, or the angle of the bolts, I gather where it's bolted to, it's relatively flush, But these are all interesting things you got to think about, So a lot of thinking before we can get to the next phase. A lot of buying parts and a lot of trial and error. That's probably not going to work in a lot of cases. So hopefully this goes smoother than other projects. Rear seal, I guess, leaks. Let's see what that does. Sorry, not much. I was like, how did they have the starter activate? And I was like, duh. It goes on. You can't really see it from the driver's seat, but apparently that's the way they did it. So there's a lot less room for electric steering in here. This is going to be interesting. There's way more real estate up here. And you don't even need the steering wheel this close, just from my experience. But like, you sit inside, and I guess this is not really an issue like I saw with other cars. But it's like right on top of you, the steering wheel, because you got to do hand over hand only with manual steering, and it gives you enough room. But if you were really heavy, you couldn't drive this car. That's why I've put it back in the past closer to the dashboard, and you really can't tell the difference. But this is going to be pretty interesting. Pretty crazy how much extra steering wheel there is. Like, you're so far away from the dashboard, it's not even funny. I didn't even realize it, even though I've driven this before. The dashboard is way sunken in, and there's not a lot of cab forward, it's like cab forward design, but they're not really using the space. To me, it'd be better to have everything up here and make the doors smaller, but it depends, what they wanted to do with the design, But the car would obviously be different, but there's a lot less room for air conditioning under the dash without it sticking out. There's really not much you can do here, So this is going to be interesting, to say the least. This is going to be fun, because I mean by not fun. So you're going to probably see the electric steering unit, because there really is not a lot of room here. And in a certain sense, you kind of don't want it interfering with how you mount it. I'm going to be challenged here. Now, this guy ain't going to be around, the shifter. It would be cool to have the shifter, but you really can't, because it's right on top of it. And this is part of the reason why my 40 Buick ain't running, because what I did kind of worked. I basically sectioned this part, and I try to figure out something because you have to pull and down. This one, not so much. The whole thing's supposed to move. Yeah. So it's a little different, or significantly different. I wish mine was like that. But like the whole thing comes up, as opposed to this thing levering. And when you lever it, a little rod goes in the middle of this rod. There's still a spring load in there, as you can see right in here. But this is something. But it would be interesting to figure out what I'm going to do here. I really don't know. So I gotta think about this, and it's very, very interesting to say the least. And of course, I still have a leaking steering box. I got to get it all out. But it's like, how the hell am I going to do that? You know, there's really not much room here, I realize. Oh boy, lots of things. And of course, we got to get a different. I want to keep the gas pedal being what I've done before, but the gas pedal is meant to push a rod, not pull a cable. And I need one to pull a cable. So I got to get another linkage piece and another thing that'll work. I'm from another car. So that's going to be interesting. This cover here is kind of blocking. Although then again, not necessarily. I'll have to put a hole for the cable, and I'll have to take out this guy because that's where the bolts are to hold the plate in that holds the steering wheel and whatnot. Very interesting. Very interesting. I just going over this now, I'm like, wow, and there's like no room here. So the fucking AC unit's going to probably stick in pretty far out. What I did on the last car, though, it ended up looking better to have it on an angle like this, So it kind of blew in your face better anyway. And, but I have another unit that I may want to try out that might be slimmer fit and look a little more 50s, because it's the reason why I didn't want to put it in my 40s car, because it didn't have the floor heat, where this one still has the original heater. I'm assuming it works. I hope it works. I don't see buttons for it, to be honest, but there's heater options under the dash there. I'm not quite sure even what this is. Pull, push, H. Oh, that's got to be it. Heat, H to heat. I guess D with an arrow up is defrost. I don't know what just D it would be. And it appears to be 2 speeds each way. That's actually really good. And we have an open slot here, which we're not going to be using this. So I don't know if another gauge comes into play. That would be interesting to have a little tiny gauge if I can't get any of these gauges to work. I don't see why I can't get that gauge to work. I don't see why I can't get the heat gauge to work, because I found out it's electrical. Be nice to put a new one instead of grabbing it off the old motor. And I'm not sure what it's calibrated at. That's the other thing. But you can't worry about it being really hot. Maybe an additional, temperature sender, something along those lines. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to get the gas gauge to work because I know what to do with that, even though it's basically a fuel cell with 90 ohms, and this is like 30 ohms in the opposite direction or something like that. But they make those gizmos. I'm hoping it works. And this steering wheel is all the way in your face. Like this, the top of the steering wheel is like on my eyes. I wish I had a. It's like on my eyes. That's how high this is. Can I move this mirror anymore? No, not really. This mirror needs to be tightened. But I mean, the top of the steering wheel here is right where the mirror is, and the mirror in this steering wheel is right where my eyes are. That's so crazy. So imagine having power steering, and it may kind of slip out of your hand if you're too loose. That's why it's like these are meant to be like really gripped on. So I'm kind of thinking it should be a little bit shorter. The last one I did, I made it 2 inches shorter by mistake, but it ended up working out very well. But obviously the big steering wheel, if it goes closer, then you have even less room. So I don't know if I can do that, It depends on the car. It depends on the thing. I'm assuming this is where the girl is. It's kind of bunched up for me, but this is a girl driving this car. So this is going to be interesting to say the least. Perhaps a newer, smaller steering wheel for Studebaker would work. But hopefully this all comes together in my mind. I'm worried about the electric steering. I'm not quite sure exactly what I'm doing just yet. I gotta take some measurements. Oh well. And more importantly, though, I gotta try to start laying the foundation for the motor and how much I gotta do with the motor. This is the engine that I got is about 10 inches apart on the available bolts. This is 16 inches apart, and is a lot more room in front of the engine. Like this one here, the front of the engine where you could fit an original style radiator is 6 inches. And this thing here is from the center line of the engine, which the center line of the other engine versus the center line of this engine is slightly different, 2.5 inches up. So the other one, the center line of the engine was 2.5 inches down from where the mounts were. So I mean, that mounts were 2.5 inches up. So if this is the center line of the engine right at the pan rail, which it is, then I'd have to like focus on the pad being over here, because that's about 2.5 inches. I think within a little bit of distance, it's not going to matter too much as far as, that, but you want that, you want it all to be right in the end. And I could probably go down more. I probably can. And if I end up with a one-piece drive shaft, because it's kind of looking like it, first of all, the drive shaft will be cheaper in a certain sense, because that's just two-piece thing and hacking it up and trying to make it work. And it's very, very iffy, to be honest. It's very weird. So from this point where the mount, where the center line of the engine is, let's say, this is 10 inches, giving me a little bit of room to fit a belt, let's say, in front. That's 10 inches from here to here. And the other one was 6 inches. So it's basically 4 inches in where the original, so I got to make it, so if this is 10 inches across and it's 16 inches, I got to make it 3 inches out and 4 inches this way in order to be in the same place. But that makes the engine go back more. And if it goes back more, it actually, when you put the tranny in, it ends up missing mostly the cross member, pretty much. Or it's not really in the way where it's an issue. And then I can make another cross member going across the chassis there. I got to remove all this linkage here, and I got to see what I can get away with here. Because that's going to get in the way, the clutch linkage. So all that's got to be removed. And there's even talk about, steering box possibly getting in the way for some engines. That's why that's another reason why I wanted the engine that I picked. And I know it's fast enough, and I know these cars have a very, very steep gear ratio, and this 2.8 was made to run on that steep gear ratio on the pickup trucks. They had, and it's at least 355s or something like that, 342s, 355s. It's very steep for that 70 horsepower engine. It just screams, barely does 55. This thing here should go just fine. And I believe it's the same displacement. I think it's 2.8 liters. And I kind of find that hard to believe, but regardless, this is going to be way better, and it's going to have overdrive, so it's not going to scream, but it's going to take advantage of the low gears to get going. So totally non-computerized, this motor. For 85, which is crazy, Jeep got away with it because they were borrowing an engine from GM, and I don't know if they do like deals with the government to say, hey, well, we're buying engines from GM. Can we, since we're losing money, can we back off on the emissions so we can make it more of an off-road something or other? You wonder what the conversations are, why they get away with it and other people don't. Mind-blowing. So this engine has to be 4 inches back in order to clear the front here, because that's pretty much where it's going to live. So it ends up being, I got to use every inch of it. It's going to look very full in here, other than being, skinny. Sitting right here, it's going to go right up to the firewall, and it's going to be pretty much the same center of gravity, although I gather it's going to be lighter, but the tranny is heavier, so It's going to be more in the center, but the tranny is definitely going to be longer. So if it's longer, I might be able to do a one-piece drive shaft. This is all good stuff because who wants to have a two-piece drive shaft if you don't need to? So, the starter is going to be on that side. I'm not sure about the exhaust yet. I did buy a Y pipe for it. The fuel line, I can cut it short because the fuel pump's on this side, so that saves a bunch. Kind of looks like somebody might have redone it, so I can just, come off of that. What else? Steering is going to be interesting. It really is. I don't know what I'm thinking about yet. And I got to get this linkage off. It's getting dark, so I want to try to do something because my car broke down today. My alternator died, and I had to fix that. And I said, let me change that thermostat so I get better heat. And it really didn't fix the heat that much, but the car stays at a hotter temperature. So being that I reversed my heater hoses, it might help. So I have this, antifreeze mess. Put the motor outside here, covered it up. And I got a mess inside because it was leaking. So what to do here, because this looks like a lot of stuff. It doesn't look, in total length, it doesn't look so bad, but I'm really wondering what can be done here, very, very interesting to say the least. But I'm excited to try to make something work here. This is going to be a lot of fun. I feel it's going to be fun-ish. So we'll see. So I'm removing the steering column. You got these 3 bolts in the steering box. The bottom one, though, I got it off. I slipped out the 2 of them, and as you can see, I got the petman arm off. And I got the 3 bolts out. I got to do the interior stuff. I got the shift arms out. What's hilarious is that there was the 3rd bolt. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I had to get the wheels all the way turned in order to make all this happen. So, I had to turn the wheel all the way to the right. So I'm like, let me turn it back before I disconnect the box. And the bolt, I started pushing the bolt through, but then I stopped. But it was binding a lot. I couldn't get it to go. So I just fucking muscled it. Never done that before. That is, and these old school bolts, they're very, very strong, but they were pretty old looking. But don't think I could use that again. Well, this became pretty stupid. You have to use a bearing separator to get the nut, the steering wheel off. Meanwhile, fucking broke. Somebody else broke it. It just broke in the same place that it was in. They put a whole bunch of glue everywhere. Maybe I broke that. I don't know. But it looks like somebody had this thing off and they did the exact same thing because it's very hard to do. You got inch and a quarter nut holding the steering wheel on by not many threads. The rod is threaded on. The rubber and the fucking insulation is going through the small rod. I had to slide the whole thing up. What a nightmare to get this thing apart. It's totally easier on the Ford I had done, but I don't know what the fuck is going on here either. Apparently it has something to do with the way it's got a shift where it holds in place or a flat spot. I don't know. I hope this is able to be done without a freaking nightmare going on here. I'm trying to get the shaft off now. I gather it's some kind of locking thing that also, like I said, creates a flat of some sort. There's a hole in here for that thing to rest in, but I was hitting this up and then this popped out. This was in there. Man, it's filthy. I don't think this matters to pull it up. It's just in that thing, so I got to get it from this point, either pry it or maybe retighten that so it fucking has something to grab to hit. So we'll see. All right, so you got that ring that was in there. I basically hit the steering box and it came off then. But this is, and then this thing here, it was a hole here that covered. I don't know what the fuck this is for. I really don't know if it just helps maintain center, even though the bearing is supposed to do that. I'm not 100% sure. This is really icky. This whole thing. How the fuck do you reseal this thing? Egads. How much play? I think there's a little bit of play in that. Nothing crazy. It's just so many turns lock to lock these things, you know? Wow. So, ultimately, we put this back down there like that. This is where the bracket goes on the inside. This bracket that I had to fucking twist to get the goddamn thing out. Okay, so if that guy is there, and then, you know, the steering wheel is up here, or the cover here for the steering wheel, you know, and then the steering wheel. It looks like this is so much longer, and I get it, but the thing is, you need room for this motor, and if you face the motor down, you totally hit it. If you face it up, this thing is such a steep climb here that I'm like, it's kind of looking like you can't go up. You kind of got to go like left or right, and going right may get in the way of the gas pedal, and going left seems to be a good idea. My thing is, I started thinking, I'm like, what if I made tilt steering and used the original tilt, you know? And I found this, because I had an extra piece. I didn't have this piece, so this piece here slides in and out. But if you tighten it, it stays put. So I'm not quite sure how it would move. I don't know if it only uses this point to pivot on while this guy goes back and forth. But you can see where this guy is and where this line is and where this is. It's like totally different. You're going to be seeing something in the compartment here. And granted, there probably is not much of this tube you would use at this point. At the bottom there, and even then, I don't know if I would use it, but it's split, so I don't know. Gotta cover up that hole somehow. But you know, I was contemplating maybe this hole could be used for the horn, because I always have a problem. But then you're gonna really see it. Kind of didn't want to do that. The hole at the bottom here, you know, could possibly be that, but I'm not feeling it because it's too big and it would be outside of the car. So rather have that stuff on the inside of the car and use the original thing here for the wire to go out, although it doesn't have to at that point. I'm a thinking, but wait a second, let me just lay it next to each other. You know, so bare bones here, this is right around here. Maybe it can be pulled up some, and maybe this gets cut off and added to that somehow. You know, whatever, this whole thing, you know, this whole up to, you know, cut it here and leave the original there. And that way this motor is forward more. But then I'm not quite sure what would happen there. Like, particularly if I was thinking about tilt steering, it'd be kind of cool. You know, and ultimately, you know, it's usually not looking like tilt steering, but I'm trying to see, like, if this guy was here, this is pretty much at the same location, so that's good. But it would have to be at the exact location if it was going to continue straight. I gather it'd be kind of cool to move it around. I just don't know how they, because like I said, I tightened that bolt, unless it's supposed to be a different bolt. Like, I just found this in a pile of my other stuff that I had here, and there might be something or a piece of metal that goes in between that you can wing it down, and it's tight enough around the shaft, but it still articulates. I think it would have to still do this. So like, it might have been a piece of sheet metal that kind of goes down the middle there, so it prevents it from going any further. It'd be interesting, you know. But I gather it had to be all the way in while straight, and then something would have to happen. This is something. The thing is that this, it's so close, like, I mean, which is kind of good, because this is where, you know, if that's all the way in, this is the inside of the car. So, I mean, I don't know how much more I can sheet this up, but they would have to be a flat bracket going in the same location, attaching to that, coming forward. And then you see this whole thing here. But, you know, maybe some kind of dress up, some kind of ornate something or other covering it could work. But I would have to test fit it up inside there just to see how it looks. And the problem is, though, the tilt steering, though, because this thing would have to be like over here, so this thing would have to face up. And that would be fine if I got it really close to the dashboard. But, you know, how close to the dashboard is that, and how much trouble is that going to be as far as getting in the way of other things? So this would have to be able to be, you know, and then if you tilt it, I'm trying to think now, that's tilting it down. I mean, but you would have to think that's even. You could tilt it down a little and then tilt it up. Or is that tilted down? I can't remember. If I go down, that's this. Yeah, that's down, that's up. So if I tilt it up, this would swing down. So that's fine. As long as up or straight is, or down or straight, this doesn't interfere. Down, you know, like down a little bit. You know, it's not so much, you really can't go down that much because the steering wheel is kicking your ass, you know. But I'm debating whether I should convince her of getting some kind of other steering wheel. You know, because this thing is a real piece. This whole fucking setup here, I was pretty upset about it, you know. I mean, you have this bearing here, but you have a bearing in there too, you know. And you know, it works. It's modern, you know. But this is fine, you know. But I'm not quite sure what to think at this point, you know. And this does, like, usually I end up using, like, this is usually 1.5 inches, and this looks like it's smaller than 1.5 inches, you know. Then again, it might be closer to the size down there. It tapers down right here. So whatever I put can maybe go up there. I'm thinking. I'm wondering. Damn. That was some piece of shit taking off this thing. It took me hours to figure it out, and it still broke a piece, and it just sucks. Yeah, and I'm not even liking the steering box. The thing is, I started looking at pictures of other steering boxes. Of course, none of them are like available rebuilt, but they all have the same, you know, flat flange here with 3 bolts, where this one is dead center, and it's basically at a 45-degree angle, you know, like that. That's how it is in the car. So a 45-degree angle is straight. If I go down, you know, like, if I go down, it should be pulling it out. If I go up, it should be pulling it out, just the opposite way. So, yeah, so it would have to be all the way retracted in. I'm just not 100% confident that would work, you know. Wow. Yeah, and then you could totally make a different thing. They have those mounting, they're kind of ornate, and they have some kind of swivel in there too. maybe that could be used instead when all is said and done. It's hard to say. Oh well, I gotta think. So ultimately, this is what you're going to see. Now, this whole thing, I was thinking about the tilt steering, but that's only if I could put it in originally. And originally, that motor is facing straight up, and it can't really go there. So all this is going to come off. Your original thing is going to be on the front. I have to machine it and do a whole bunch of stuff to get it to work. And the back here is not going to, it's not going to have this extra joint probably. It's just going to go directly onto here for the most part from the column. But it's just like everything. It's like all the other ones I have done, you know. This is so heavy to hold. But like I said, when I go up, it hits this, which is the emergency brake, which you need. And, you know, I was trying to put it in a little bit different position, which is maybe possible. But this is a support bracket that it's in the way. You know, it actually helps support the steering, actually. So it's kind of necessary. And, you know, maybe it could be modified, but the motor doesn't fit up here. The motor only fits like in this general area, and it fits better than I thought. It was like I was actually getting worried. It's just like I was trying to figure out the whole thing with, you know, leaving tilt steering and everything. This like I said, it's supposed to be on the bottom and whatnot, but it would be kind of cool to have tilt steering. But ultimately, hang on a sec. All this stuff in the front, this thing is off. You know, you're just going to see your thing. The only thing is this part right here. You're going to see that. But you could put a piece of material going across, an extra piece of metal. There's a lot of things you can do to cover it up, but you're going to have to see some wiring. But the thing is that when you're up here in the car, you're not really going to see it. You know, so that's it. So in order to not have this in the car, you would have to make some kind of custom bracket that duplicates what you got here, and then get like some kind of Chevy, you know, hydraulic power steering pump. You're talking about a very difficult thing. Hey, buddy, out! Who told you to come here? Look at this. Stop traveling through my mess. Anyway, that's it. I just can't see. I can't see doing this because, like, you know, with some kind of regular bracket, because this is your steering. This thing is safe for 70 years, and I'm not changing this. You know, I'm changing the seal. I'm cleaning it up. I'm going to cut it short right here, and put that electric steering in between here. You know, so that's really what needs to be done. You know, it's the same amount of turns, and if the steering ever went bad, you'd still have mechanical steering. Whereas if you go with the hydraulic steering, it's like your Chrysler Imperial or whatever. You know, they would all just it's impossible to steer after that point. So this one will still have the original steering if anything failed. You know, it was the same turns, it'd be the same mechanical advantage. You know, but yeah, that's it. Filming too much today. I had a lot of headache. Namely, I had to take apart the steering box, and these bearings fell off. I'm not pleased about that because there's all these little ball bearings. Hopefully, like the one that fell off over here, it like the clip stretched, it seemed like, but the same thing happened on this side. So basically, I was putting this in the press. I drilled it out. I cut it off, drilled it out, and I did different things, but it kept fucking getting off center. But now it looks like I have it on center. I drilled the front 11/16, and I kept reaming out a 5/8. I had so much of this gear in there. It was so much longer than I really needed to have it. I have another one over here. What a mess. The freaking oil inside the steering box is icky as fuck. Come on. It's around here somewhere. I really need to have better organization than just anywhere you can imagine. I cut off that much off it. I had way more, you know, in there. So I got it way in, and it actually pressed in further. And I'm going to weld it all the way around because I'm not going to rely on that, but it's pretty fucking tight. It probably could, but I mean, I gather if you bottomed out the steering box all the way with the power assist, it might slip, you know. But what I've done in the past is use this part only on the back of the thing, and I cut it out and I throw away that shaft. And then I drill this out. The problem is this is about the same size as this, so there really is no drilling out, you know. So there would be such a thin wall on there, and I went through this, and I kind of feel like it's not that much bigger, but it is bigger. I know it's bigger because when you look at look down the steering column, where first of all, the nut is, like I said, 1.25 inch nut that holds on this. But the hole here is so big that it has to have, a much bigger thing. Because even if it was the same size, usually that hole is a lot smaller in the center, and the nut is smaller in the center. So if that's the case, it's more meat there. You can go crazy, and it's not an issue. And we've had to do that. I got to get my friend now to help me, but with the lathe and whatnot. But now I can weld that around. It's not going to be an issue. The bearing that goes on here is not going to be an issue either, because it's not like I was worried about mushrooming this, because it kind of like I was heating it up with the bolt buster just to try to get it to go. But it's pressing in splines is a little funny, and just because you heat it doesn't mean it'll go in right. And also I realized this is all bronze or something like that, and I have a feeling I've seen this on camshafts for like small block Chevy, where they weld on a softer gear on the back of the camshaft onto the hardened roller cam, so it doesn't ruin the distributor gear. So this is kind of reminding me of that. Like, this is very precise, and I couldn't fit that in the drill to make sure that it was straight, but I put, because after I got it in and it wouldn't go any further, I had this. This is an oil pump priming rod. It's basically a 5/16 rod, but I was hitting this with the fucking hammer like you wouldn't believe to get this thing out, and it did come out. But I put it in the hole, and I kind of just drove it on, and it's definitely not bad. There's nothing really wrong with it. But I think something happened here. But the front here is drilled to 11/16, so I'm pretty sure it caught there. But I used the grinder to grind the splines in the beginning. So, like I said, I usually have this, and the thing is that this usually yields something much shorter. See, I'm looking to do this, and then, oh yeah, right in front of me was the piece. So this is the piece. This is how long it goes. It goes all the way to the end here for the most part. So that's why I cut off that much, and it has that step that I cut off, And I thought that was to make it go in easier, but that's when it kept fucking going sideways and shit. Oh my God, where did I put this shit? Basically, it's the original thing that goes here. Well, this is one of them. What did I have? Now that would suck if I totally miscalculated something here. Oh yeah, this guy. I'm not quite. I guess this is another one that goes on the end of this, or this one. I think it's this one. But this one here now. Oh God, I'm gonna kill myself. I think the intent was to change the U-joint if it didn't work, but yeah, this is much bigger. I didn't realize this even. What was I thinking? So ultimately, if that was going there, and you know what, I can always hack it off and do the same thing if it actually did work, and then truthfully, it would be stronger to do that. I still don't feel right about, doing something like that. But when I do it this way, I drill a hole through and I put a pin through, a bolt nut. And what I don't like about that is that it's not adjustable. What this one does is allows it to ride on this and articulate this way and that way. So I could swear I had one of these guys, unless it was this guy. No, this is the guy I had on there. I totally fucked up. I went through all that for, I don't want to say for nothing, but it can still be done. It's not a huge deal, but you got all these things here. Guy charged me a fortune, actually, that he used this one, and it looks like he just used my caps, and he charged a lot for not really doing much. But boy, I feel stupid now, because I could swear I had another one of these, but no, this is where they always look, including this. This is the one that goes in the back there. So I would have to pop out these things, and hopefully they're the same size. This guy with the bigger thing is usually the one that you lay in that goes to the steering column, I think. I mean, unless, oh Jesus, I'm going to scrape that on the floor. I think either one of these. See, this guy fits, loose, and then I guess the bolt would tighten it up. This guy fits quite tighter. I guess it wasn't this guy, it was this guy, which is just as well. I'll leave that together for some, you never know what you use these projects for, but I had one of these guys on there. I don't want to hurt this thing. Oh, I don't know if I'm lined up 100%. Also, I was kind of putting this in the press and beating it with a hammer, but it's hardened, so it should be okay. Okay, so this guy is on, and then he tightened it up. But you know what I have? I have adjustment. Of course, this going right on top of it there, I don't know. I mean, if everything's straight, I guess it's fine, but at least I have up until like there, so I have some kind of movement. This far away pretty much gives me full articulation, and it depends. It may not even get that far because of how this is sitting in the other one. But you can imagine that now I don't have to put everything so set in stone. I got like an inch of play here that I can work with, and it'll be interesting because I kind of don't want to. I don't want to use that one, but I also don't want to use this one because whatever happens if I do have to do this, then I got to put these things back. They're just staked in. I'm really wondering if you just press it hard enough. Although if I can get a tiny little die grinder bit to tackle that should be fine. I could just stake it again, put a little tack weld, something like that. But I feel this gives a little more flexibility with how it's mounted because this thing is it's going to be so hard to figure out, and I had to pull it apart. It's not like I can just keep putting it back and forth together. I don't want to weld it yet either, but if I weld it, I could weld it with this box together, so I might just do that. So, kind of cool. I forgot about the checking the size, because I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it, but I just... the other thing I was thinking about was making this a double D, but it's still big, so it's the aftermarket ones. I don't think are the same amount of splines as this. I'd have to see. I'd have to play around. I should find a GM box I could put it on to see if it's the same, because it might be. You never know. So if that's the case, I can also get something aftermarket, perhaps. I didn't even realize I can probably get an aftermarket instead of all this stuff, but I'd like to try to do it myself without paying somebody. So I think I use this guy with this one, and hopefully it works out. I just don't know if the size of the things are the same. I gather they are, because I believe it's all Toyota Prius stuff. But it's funny, one of these is a little bit different than the other. Oh, is that bigger? It does look like it's bigger. So I don't know if from year to year they change something. This was both small as well. So I'm going to get to work on that, and I got to measure the radiator, and then I'd like to do something with the motor mounts. Start finding metal and welding something up. So this is my progress today. So just the taper from the chuck being all the way at the smallest, that holds the smallest drill bit, puts the biggest cone here. So that actually held, and I have it in there. And I think I have it zoomed in. Honestly, I was turning it. It didn't seem that bad. It seemed like it was wobbling more in your house than here. But that's seems pretty good to me. Well, I finally made use of the lathe that doesn't work yet. I put the shaft in there this time, so I know it's going to be straight. And I was spinning it, and it was straight. And unfortunately, my welder was not really working like I wanted to, so I got lots of extra weld that I got to grind down. But, you know, it's all good, as long as it's straight, because last time it was not as straight as I wanted it to be. And so this definitely confirms it. I must say, I am super happy with the way this came out. Like I said, my welds aren't that great, but they hold. Totally would be better if I had gas for the welder, but it's all good. It's perfectly straight because I welded it in the lathe there, and I grinded down the welds. I cleaned it all up. I'm quite impressed, and it's funny because this I know this customer of mine tends to want everything perfect when it can't be perfect. So like it was a mix of that. You know, me wanting to make it perfect as possible, and the fact that this is a weird size thing. Like, it's not on, they're usually bigger. This is actually on the smaller side, but, or about the same size, I'm going to say, but the hole is huge, so there's not much wall in the pipe, you know, in this thing. It's basically like a, you know, like a plumbing pipe almost. That being said, the splines for the Toyota shaft fit right in. See, normally I was cutting it right around here and trying to slide it in. My friend really, he couldn't really do it with what he had, you know, because he just does it out of his basement, you know. But yeah, I have my own lathe. I should just fix it and do it myself, right? That being said, we used a drill to drill the hole, and then we tried to machine this, and we realized that the drill is not perfect. So we ended up making this too small, and this was too big, or this was perfect, but this was too big on the last one. And I had to guess when I welded it, but I should have thought about putting it on the lathe then. But what was good about this is that I pressed, they actually made splines inside this pipe. And like I said, I did the same thing with this guy here, who I put the bearings back on. I put this in here. This is not cleaned up, so this one looks like it's metal filings everywhere. But ultimately, I got to assemble the box and then take the box out again when I have to weld this. Like, I don't think this is ever moving, but I don't want to weld it right now. I'd rather wait because I just know that there's always a chance that it's not in right. It could be too long. That means I'd have to try to cut this down and then shove it in more. These are all things that were very hard when I put this in, but it was doable, and I had to drill it out. But a lot of this all worked out very well, and it's going to be more secure. It's going to be, you know, really held in by spline welds and splines as opposed to the through bolt with the bolt, which I think will have no problem on the other car. I even did that on my 40 Buick, which one day that car will run. But this is really, you know, legit. You know, it's not moving. You know, I think I have it in the right place. I'll know more. Like I said, I could probably just weld it up and deal with it, or if I really had a problem, just grind off the weld, you know. And I might even consider doing that because it's just a pain in the ass, you know. Because I really felt like I got it right. So it's just a matter of cutting the pipe on the outside. So I'll see. I might just do that, you know. But I hate to put the box in and I got to pull it out again. If I go to pull it out, I'd rather pull it out for a reason. But, you know, if I weld it and I weld it wrong, I got to grind off the weld. I pretty much have to pull this whole thing out again. So I could just weld it with the box, you know. I could put the box, protect it, and then just weld around. So I'm probably going to do that, and I'll just have to take it in and out. That's all. It's not a huge deal. It's part of, you know, mocking up and having to take things up and, you know, put things together and take things apart and put it back together again. So it is what it is. So I think this is all going to work out fine. Hopefully everything, you know, is good. I didn't lose any of those shims because it ended up being more shims than I thought because they were all sticking together. I spray painted the box here, but I got to do the cover and stuff. But just to give you an idea, you know, what was I saying? Yeah, when I cleaned all these, the shims, I was like, wow, there's a million shims, like really small shims even, and they were all kind of like stuck together. It kind of acts like a gasket, and it kind of acts like, it is, the adjustment. I got to clean this up more. I got to scrape out all that dirt like I did on the other one. This one looks pretty good. I can probably paint this, clean that up a little bit more. Gets flash rust right away. Pretty crazy. Oh well, it's looking good though. This box is looking pretty good, I must say. So it's going pretty well. So I'm having some issues putting together the thing because there was not enough shim apparently. Because if I tightened it all the way down, it was binding. So either I lost one somehow because, like I said, I didn't even remember that I had. I didn't realize that there was more than a couple of shims there, and all of a sudden all these thin shims come out of nowhere. So I was like, oh no, what's happened here? Thank God the gasket came off nice. It just came. I was going to leave it on. It actually endured the hot tank and everything, so it's clean and it's not going to be an issue. Now, when it comes to these clips here, these things kept falling off on me, even though I got them in. I did this one already, and I just did this one. You can see that they're very close. That one was way wider, and I used the bolt buster and I heated it up cherry red. And you're not supposed to quench it again or anything like that. It'll just bring it back to original with any kind of spring, So I think that this definitely worked. And the other one was definitely tighter going on. It just seemed too easy. Like I was just putting it in and out of the box. I would lose the clip and then it'd fall apart. Somebody sold a new set of ball bearings, so I got a new set coming. And I also got an extra shim. There's one person selling one shim. I have no idea if it's enough or too much or whatever. Also, I was under the impression I put the wrong ball bearings with the wrong race. So I'm thinking that maybe it'll fit better now. Don't know, but I had to play with these first to get that to work because every time I put it in, it kept falling out on those sides. So. And this one definitely was way big, but it really wasn't an issue because this thing is way wider that holds it, so it actually was grabbing more of it, but now I got it really tight, so it should definitely work. And what do you call it? Hopefully this solves that problem as far as how many shims it has, because I'm pretty sure I didn't lose any. I checked the hot tank, it wouldn't have fallen through the basket, but I checked on the bottom anyway. So unless I somehow it was sticking to something and it fell off on the way walking somewhere and it's hiding somewhere, I don't think it's really the issue. So I'm thinking it should go back together correctly, but if it doesn't, I got new ones coming. I did get the seal. I put the seal in. It's on the other side through there. I have the right fluid because I've had it for a while for other cars that I never used it on. And what else? Hopefully this will do it. At least I can put it together and mock it up if it works. And if I change the ball bearings, I change them because they didn't look bad. But it's funny how there's 11 in each one, and one set looked like they were shiny, and the other side looks like they're dull. And usually dull means that they're worn. So I can understand that if I did one or the other way, it may not fit. But it's still, if anything, no matter what, it should be looser. But it depends, So I'll find out. Yeah, ho-hum, everything went in well, but it's still the same thing. It's binding, and this should go smoothly. And I don't even crank these down, just to show you how if I loosen them. And I just thought about it. Instead of putting together the whole thing, I could just put this in because this should be good enough. I mean, the amount that it needs to be shimmed is not going to make a difference. But see, I just loosen it up. It makes a huge difference. But you can still feel that it's binding. So at least now I can put this in and get an idea of what's going on now with what I got to do. And I actually spun this in the lathe, and it was right on the money. And as you can tell, it's pretty straight, as it should be. So, a little setback, but if I got to change the ball bearings anyway, and I got to wait several days for them to come in, and I'm going to get an extra shim. I'm sure I can make a shim like that, or find shim material or something similar. I don't see why not. It may also be very standard. I don't know. I got to look at other manufacturers. I wouldn't doubt that they would have, like if I looking at parts for a Studebaker steering box is a lot different than looking up for a Chevy of the same year. So, it's a bit of a bummer, but as long as I can bolt this in and figure out what I got to do with the thing, it'll be fine. Another update is I have a problem with the metal I bought. I paid good money for this metal, and like this is something that I was going to do right here. Use these two bolts. Okay, obviously I'd have to trim it for the bolt there, but right here would be where the original mount would be, which is awesome, And I just figured it was the same thing on the other side. I really didn't look, but I'm like, you got this, you got one bolt there, but you don't have another bolt. You got the mechanical fuel pump right behind it here. And I'm like, oh boy, this is not looking good. Unless I can figure out something. I don't know if you can't even just stick any kind of metal behind there of any kind of substance there. So I may have to do this side like way different because honestly, in order for it to be the center line of the engine to be in the same place, the mount has got to be up here, right about at that bolt or slightly lower. Who knows if I was going to have problems anyway, but you don't want to use timing cover bolts, it's aluminum there. So I really wanted to use this. I thought, because this is usually there's a U here on the four-wheel drive cars, and I was thinking of something like that. I'm not quite sure now, so I may have to hack out the original ones and just use the Chevy mounts, or in this case is Jeep mounts, but I think I bought Chevy mounts as well. I just didn't think that was feasible the way it looked, but now it's like, I got to do more work to figure this out, I think, because this side is an issue, and if I go use the bolts for this mount, and the mounts here, they're up high, but then the rubber comes down. It might be in the right place, so I don't know if I can make something that, extends. Obviously, then you don't want to have a rubber mount and a rubber mount, but something has got to be different now. I'm not happy, I'm never going to not use these, metal never go to waste, but I'm debating what to do. I'm wondering if I can just do something like that, but what's the point? I might as well just have, because it looks like you can kind of go flat here. If I got a flat piece, I don't know what kind of angle iron that would have to be, but it wouldn't have to be angle iron. The angle iron could still come up like this, and then you weld it to a flat piece on the block there. Maybe using the bottom bolt here as an additional on this side, but like I said, it's still an issue. It's not like I said, it's not like I can fit even this thick of a. It's not going. I'd have to really push on the rubber hose, and that's a little funny, And it's not really getting me where I need it to go, Maybe, like if I just see like right there, I'm pushing the hose forward. I have to go out like that and then come around and go higher somehow. And now I don't know if going higher is going to interfere. Now that being said, we're putting electric steering, so this power steering pump can go. That's not a problem. I don't know. I wouldn't really, like I said, I wouldn't even use the bolts for the fuel pump. I wouldn't. Apparently, the front-wheel drive motor might have an extra, because I remember seeing it afterwards. Now, I saw one bolt that goes here and one goes on the side there, but I'm not seeing that side bolt because it just may not be here on the rear. So that'd be interesting. Right there. Yeah. So let's try just the oil. The oil. Otherwise, this motor is so clean. I can't wait to see it run. But I'm still now questioning how the heck to do this. Then again, these two bolts on the top here, they just look like they'll come straight across here. So something like that. It may not need to be all three bolts, you know. But, you know, it kind of looks like all the bolts will go, but obviously this side no, because of the fuel pump. So putting bolts straight up on the top, and then, you know, like up to this area here, and then angling it, and that one would have to go past and directly there somehow. Yeah, this would have to be up there, or just like that. It'd have to be just a flat piece then, I guess. But now I got new wheels turning here for this. I may have to bolt on something here, and I'm not. I don't remember how the GM ones look. I got them somewhere here in all this mess over here. So I got to think about what possibilities there are with the Chevy mounts or the other mounts. And it's a shame because I really didn't notice. I didn't know. How could I, you know? But I picked the engine because it's so nice and small. But it's a little busy on that side, and without fuel injection, you know, that fuel pump kind of gets in the way. It's really just a fuel pump, and I could say, yeah, let's run an electric fuel pump, but yeah, you'd kind of rather not if you can help it, you know. So I shall see. Okay, notice some more problems. The AC compressor, you know, this is exactly the one I want to use. I don't want to use this one because it's old, older at the very least. I don't know. I would say this is, if it's not original, I don't know, but the belt don't look like it lines up. It looks close, but it almost seems like there'll be a dual pulley, and no matter what, I cannot find a single pulley AC compressor. So I'm really thinking it came on that in one sense, but maybe not. It's also possible the belt is just really tight, and that's why it's kind of like skewed. Or there was supposed to be another bracket in the back here. Doesn't seem terribly necessary. And there was another bolt here for an air pump, I assume. So that's another thing that the belt, because there's one belt that wasn't being used, and I gather it was for the air pump, but I also went around the alternator. Unless this wasn't the original one, and there was a double one going around there and the air pump. You know, like, so you have a little bit extra on everything else. Now, that being said, I just removed the power steering pump because we're not using that. But then I just realized there's nothing turning the water pump. So this is an issue. And at the very least, whether or not it ends up going on the AC compressor, because I don't think it could, I think that it would skip over it, just like this one is skipping over it. And I'm not even sure. I gather it would, though, right here. So yeah, if you only use one belt for the thing and then continue it here and then go here, and the thing is that I'm not even sure they have this in the right groove, and that's why maybe it's messing me up. But then again, you know, the power steering pump you can't mess up. That was in the right place, and that was the rear one. But I'm not seeing the front one here and the second one really close. Because, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But I'm looking at the pulley here in the center. There's no space there. This is a huge space here. So I'm really wondering what they did. I have a feeling, though, this front one looks maybe a tiny bit smaller. Perhaps I can lay this belt in this front one if it fits. But I was thinking the air pump belts are usually skinnier, but it also could not be. But I'm wondering if the front one was actually supposed to be the air pump, regardless if it went on the alternator, you know? So I got to look at pictures of other engines and see how they're set up. But this is separate from the rest of them. Like this would be the original. That makes me sense for the power steering. There's the belts left, and there's a huge space here. But it's like, I don't know if this is meant for without power steering, which would be perfect if I use the inside one now for the alternator, or the inside one for the alternator, and then double it up on this. That's what makes the most sense, and then not use the front one in this situation. Thing is, I'm not 100% sure if it lines up. I don't see how it can't. I mean, I'm looking at this like there's something wrong here. To me, this belt is going way off to the side. And that's going forward, and this is going forward. Like the alternator really doesn't line up. That's why if this was a double pulley and the outside alternator was on the inside pulley and this was left alone, and then the inside one were also on the alternator, that would spin the water pump. That would be fine. Jesus, something just got complicated. Now I got to do more thinking and research tonight when I lay in bed and don't sleep all night. Very interesting. More work to do, more things to figure out. Well, bad news is, let's take this longer belt, put it on the back here. It's funny, it looks better on video, but it's definitely not right. It's way too far in, because it's going under this AC bracket right here, directly under, and then if you come here, it's like it's nowhere in no man's land. It's right up against the pulley right here. Wow, this is a problem. Wonderful. Okay, so I just put it on the second one. That one looks so much better. Because look at where it was on the front of the alternator. So maybe that is lined up, but it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem like it's lined up as good as it should be. However, if I let me just see something. Let me put it on this one now, without having it on the AC compressor. Yeah, that's a mile off. That's why something didn't look right. Then again, it wasn't touching the power steering, the water pump. It looks close, but it's. I don't think it's lined up. Is it? If I take this off. I'd have to say it's kind of close. Almost looks like it's skinnier on the bottom. Like the bottom was on the air pump only. Hang on a second. Always something. Can I get a break? I just know these engines ran great, I don't really know that all the ins and outs. Okay, the belt fits in there, but it's not seeming like it's a direct lineup. Let's see what happens when I put on the belt. Come on. Alright, it's pretty fucking lined up to me. The thing is, it's not really lined up with the alternator. The inside one looks like it's more lined up with the alternator. And you have to figure one of them has to be off. Because when I go here, see, look, it's. Yeah, there's some issue here, but if you had if you had the AC
on a dual pulley and use the inner one would line up with this guy, and then it misses the water pump pulley. I mean, it looks like the bottom one is out more than the second one, but in one sense, within, see, look, they're all off. Now I'm looking, and they all look like they're off. Even the power steering one is off. I question now the water pump being correct, or just needing shims behind the water pump pulley. That is off. So where it was driving the water. Somebody did something when they had this motor apart and they forgot something. I don't think there's a shim on the crank pulley, unless this guy bent the crank pulley and I didn't even realize it. Because you know what? Oh, fuck yeah. Wait a minute, is the bolts loose? Nope. Oh boy. That's the problem. I bet you they all line up. You know, I mean, obviously the back one doesn't line up with the thing, but is that oh shit, the harmonic balancer is fucked up. Oh, that's wonderful. That's what happened. So they are straight, I think, and the harmonic balancer came off. Wow, I never even noticed this whole time. Did not notice. Wow. I really hope there's not something wrong with the engine that it did that. You would think that sounded like a fucking knock. That would be terrible, because I'd be like 0 for 3 as far as buying engines. I didn't even realize this. I don't think this happened in the garage here. No fucking way. The question is the bottom pulley here bent? Because to me they're not lining up. And it looks close here, but that's obviously the thing. So now I got to get a wrench and try to turn this. So I don't know if he was looking at not included, but after I took off the pulley, this just came right out. But I was trying to spin the motor over. When I spun the motor over, you can tell this fucking motor is so fucking tight, as far as oil leaks are concerned. But either somebody pulled this off wrong. I mean, there was a chunk of rubber missing, but the balancer is not tight all the way. So that would make sense for the alignment issue, because I'm tightening the bolt and it just keeps tightening. And rather than tighten it all the way, I'm like, fuck it, it's already probably partially off. There's nothing wrong with the threads. So somebody didn't fucking send it home. And some issue there. So I'm going to pull it off and... that's very weird. So unless this kid didn't include it, but I mean, this doesn't just get like this. You see, there's dirt there. I mean, it looks like oil, because the oil is maybe leaking from the snout, from the inside portion. They didn't have this in all the way. Jesus, I hope everything's okay with the motor. I don't think that would cause a huge problem, but this would cause imbalance for sure. But I wonder if he just thought the motor was going bad. The guy because he got the call from somebody else, and he just knew what it was, and the motor didn't. But it would have been nice if he fucking told me. He had so many engines and stuff like that. You'd think he could change it over, but you get a little worried sometimes when that shit is not disclosed, because he had to have heard that or seen that or something. He said he was driving it around and everything. So I'm more hoping it got damaged. If it got damaged, I think something else would be damaged, Something is definitely weird here, to say the least. I still have an issue, though, of trying to figure out what belt is for what. So, this is the thing. But, I mean, the good news is this is not bent. Oh, wow. I can't believe I didn't notice this. You don't just... This is like... maybe the second time I've seen this in my life. You hear about it all the time. And not that I saw other ones that look totally intact, but they're just slightly off. Where you hear them. You don't even... so this would usually make noise for a while, So I really hope everything is good. I am concerned now that... kind of thinking that this thing would be leaking oil if it was that bad. I don't think it had much more to tighten, in reality. I mean, I could send it home, but I was tightening it, and it was turning, but it was turning more here than it was on the thing here. So, oh boy, holy something. But this motor I can technically start on the stand. But, oh man, that was kind of scary. I was like, oh, fuck me.